Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd. Please excuse my voice, I'm a little bit sick today, but I really want to review episode 5 of Boba Fett, which was basically an episode of The Mandalorian. And as I said in the previous review, I think The Mandalorian is a much better show, and this is yet another example of why. So first of all, The Mandalorian is actually going to other planets, other places in the galaxy, and that's much more fun as a science fiction fan to see that. And in this specific episode, they showed us something which I absolutely love, which is the idea of a giant habitat in space, which is in the form of a huge ring, which is an idea I always love to see because this is something that might actually work in real life, because if you spin something in space, you can create artificial gravity that way. And it's probably is most famous from Space Odyssey, which showed us all those space stations and spaceships with a spinning ring in which people can have gravity. And I think the first time I saw that idea was in some old cartoon, which I don't remember its name. If anyone remembers it, please let me know, because I've actually been looking for it. I specifically remember a cartoon that I saw as a kid, and there was a very interesting shot in it of someone looking at the horizon, but the horizon was going up, meaning it never ends, and the ground and everything just keeps going, and you can look at it forever, and it just looks so fascinating, so interesting, so artistic, that I really loved it, and I remember that image forever, but I don't know what cartoon it was. And more recently we saw the same idea in the end of the movie Interstellar, which also showed us that kind of structure, and there was that Dyson sphere in Star Trek, which unfortunately they never really explored, and so we didn't really get to see much of it, but that's an idea that I always found fascinating. And in this episode, the Mandalorian goes to such a space city, which is like a giant ring in space, so I absolutely loved it visually. And there's also very good action scenes, and he still has the dark saber, and then he meets his own kind who are living in hiding underneath the city, which is on the outside of the ring, and if someone falls down there, he flies off into space. I loved how it all looked visually. It's a neat science fiction idea in a visually beautiful way, so that's one of the big reasons I love this episode. Even though it can be argued, in the universe of Star Wars, they have artificial gravity without having to spin anything, and so why would they need such a structure? But, maybe this is an older space station which was built before they had that technology, so I can come up with excuses. Maybe it's simply cheaper that way, instead of generating artificial gravity the way starships do it, and so since you have a whole city, it will be very expensive to power massive amounts of artificial gravity. Maybe that's why they have to spin it around, because it's simply cheaper that way. So anyway, I love this science fiction element in this episode. And then later he goes back to Tatooine. It was also funny how he had to fly a commercial starship because he no longer has his ship. For a moment I forgot that his ship blew up in the previous season, and so he had to fly like a civilian. And then there's that kid who looks at him from another seat, and that was funny because that's what always happens when you're on a bus or a plane. There's always some kid looking at you, and so I found that part funny and also emotional because it reminded him of Baby Yoda. And then he looks at the gift he made for him from the bus car, some kind of armor for Baby Yoda, I guess, which might be funny to see. And then he goes back to Tatooine and meets Jet Reno, who is building a new ship for him, and it looks just like those Naboo fighters from episode 1, so that was neat. And the whole attention to detail in this whole show is very good. It's something I always praise them for, because they get so many little things right, so many correct references. It's amazing how they get all the details correctly. And then he takes the ship out for a spin, and he goes to the same place where we saw the pod race. And the pod race is actually something I loved visually in episode 1, and so it was neat to see the same places again, and this time going even faster. And then he flies out into space and is then stopped by the New Republic cops, which I always find funny how they're the good guys of the galaxy. They're basically like good police officers who check everything out, and they're flexible, they're willing to let people off with a warning, and then it turns out to be exactly the same guy that we saw in the previous season, so that kind of made me laugh. And then Mando escapes from them using the super duper engine that Jet Reno installed for him, and that ship also has like a small co-pilot seat where the droids used to be, but because he hates droids, she turned it into another seat, maybe thinking he still has Baby Yoda with him. And so I'm hoping that maybe in the next episode we will see Baby Yoda sitting there with his Mandalorian armor on, sitting behind Mando, and maybe using his force powers to help him out in some fight. So I'm really waiting for the next episode. So this was a really fun, a really enjoyable episode to watch. but it's so strange that it's set as an episode of Boba Fett and we never actually see Boba Fett. And it seems like another episode of The Mandalorian, and it once again shows why The Mandalorian, in my opinion, is the superior show, because first of all, him as a character, it's what Boba Fett was always supposed to be. That's how he was in the movies. He's quiet, mysterious, and a badass and all of that. So it's simply more fun. So I highly recommend this episode. Obviously the best Boba Fett episode, and maybe even one of the better Mandalorian episodes. So that's all I have to say about it for now. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comments below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.